Hi, good afternoon. I'm Alexandra Katehakis, Clinical Director of Center for Healthy Sex, and welcome to my monthly webinar from Mirror of Intimacy. Today is July 9th, and I'm here in 90 degrees Los Angeles, where it's actually cooler than it's been the last 3 days. I hope all of you are enjoying your summer thus far and not sweltering too badly. So today's topic is foreplay. So we'll get started by reading Miles Walser's quote of the day, which he says, "Once I got naked and danced around your bedroom, awkward and safe, you did the same. We held each other without hesitation and flailed lovely. This was vulnerability foreplay." And what I love about this quote is that it has a sense of unabashed play to it. And play is such an important part of sex and sexuality because it means that our ability to socially engage is available to us. And play is a major circuit in all animals. All you have to do is watch kittens or cats or dogs or panda bears or any other mammal. When they are feeling safe and secure, you'll see that they play together. There's rough and tumble play, there's tickling, there's chasing, there's all sorts of activities that go with the sense of play. And adult play is incredibly important to our health and well-being. It's also how we learn. So foreplay is the precursor or part of what has to happen before sex. And all too often, we live in a culture that is very, very focused on for males erection and for females orgasm. And so it's all about intercourse and the aspect of getting off. Rarely do we see or talk about or think about sex that doesn't include those things. So as we talk about foreplay today, I want you to think about sex in a different way. I want you to think about non-penetrative, non-intercourse sexuality, and see if this helps you start to expand or stretch out your notions about sex and sexuality. When we overlook or rush past foreplay, oftentimes it's from anxiety because the intimacy, the close-in connection with the other feels threatening. It can feel awkward. It can feel self-conscious because we're really being seen by another person. And yet, ironically, most of us long to be seen deeply. When children are with their parents from infancy all the way through childhood, the deepest desire of any child is to be seen, because that act of the parent noticing them, looking into their eyes, delighting in them, cherishing them, validating them, is what regulates the nervous system and creates a securely attached human being. And when we don't get that in childhood, we're often looking for that from our lovers. Whether or not we have any kind of sex or love issues, in long-term relationships, we're often looking for that mirroring that we always need throughout life, not just in childhood, but in adulthood also, which says, do I matter? Am I good enough? Do you find me attractive? Not in a way that's so needy that we are dependent on another in order to function for that, but in a way that it creates and sort of recreates on a daily basis our sense of self, our sense of dignity, our sense that we are desirable or wanted, whether it's in a sexual way or in a supportive way, it doesn't matter, but that we actually matter to someone else in the world is essential for us. So rushing past foreplay, lunging at the sex, is a way to avoid that sort of intimacy and close-in sense of being seen. So I want to draw your attention to Doug Wagner's email in the text box. I got his email address wrong, so I apologize for that. It's actually dwagner, just like it sounds, at centerforhealthysex.com, and you can ask him questions directly, and he'll relay them to me. So when I think about foreplay, I think about including all 5 senses, which makes it really broad and really fun. Because when we stop and really dissect the senses, that's where sensuality comes from. So sight and what we see can sometimes be the most important sense because human beings are very visual creatures. So we're always looking at what's important, what catches our attention, what's shiny, what's new. So looking at your partner, really gazing into your partner's eyes deepens and enhances intimacy in a very soulful way, because the eyes create novelty in the system. When we're close in and looking closely at another, we're seeing them with fresh eyes. If you see your partner from across the room, especially if you've been in a long-term relationship with them, you may be looking at them in a cursory way or in your peripheral vision. You're not really looking or seeing or looking for them with your eyes. So you want to look for your partner with your eyes. You want to gaze deeply. And when you make that eye contact, talk about what's stimulating you visually. Is it the color of their eyes? Are you noticing how brown or blue or green they are in a way that's new for you, like sort of in a surprised way? So I was talking about what's visually arousing to you, and knowing that there are certain things that are visually arousing to you allows you to have a conversation with your partner about that, so they know what you like seeing while you're together, while you're making love, whether it's the curve of a back, or the twist of a shoulder, or the way your genitals come together in a particular position. All of that is valid. And, you know, people can get really squeamish sometimes about being sexually objectified by their partner. And this is one of those many, many paradoxes that we have in life. But objectification without connection can feel like one is being used or devalued or disrespected. I think women in particular have this experience sometimes. So this is not that. This is about making a heartfelt, a soulful, an eyeball-to-eyeball connection, but also being quite frank and explicit about the other parts of the body that are sexually arousing to you. So it's about holding both of those polarities, that paradox at all the time, and being honest with your partner about that. So being able to add these simple things into your foreplay helps to make the arousal, what we can call trajectory or liftoff, that much more interesting. So if you have any questions about what I'm saying, again, please type your messages into the chat box. And right now I'm talking about visual arousal, whether it's a body part, a choice of clothing, you know, a hairstyle, lipstick color, you know, colors of your sheets, whatever it might be. Just allow yourself to bring those visual pieces into your sex life. And then the next scent that we talk about in this entry is the scent of the sound of our lovers make. One of the things that's highly arousing to many people, especially men, in pornography is that it appears, in heterosexual pornography specifically, that the female is really enjoying whatever the sexual act is. And one of the ways that we telegraph enjoyment is through sound. And so when you don't make sound during sex, that can also be erotic, especially if that's the contract between the two of you, that you're not going to make any sound. And sometimes not making sound can be very difficult. So what is it about sound that makes you uncomfortable? What makes you comfortable with it? Some people don't make sounds not because it's part of their erotic template, but because they're self-conscious. It's very difficult to not make sound during sex because you have to breathe in order to have arousal. You have to have oxygen to your pelvic region, whether you're male or female. The act of getting yourself up over the arousal threshold requires arousal in the nervous system. Your heart is pumping, your blood pressure is changing, your breathing is changing, and all of that is going to require some sort of sound or heaving from the body. So those sounds, whether they are sensual moans and groans, indicate that we're surrendering to the moment. Those are resonant tones that also signal sexual pleasure to our partner and let us know that we're in concert with each other, that what we're doing or being done to us is pleasing. It's a green light, if you will. And that creates more arousal in the other person and in ourselves. So it's sort of a recursive loop, or chicken and egg, if you want to put it that way, that telegraphs to ourselves and to each other that we're on the right track, that this feels good, that it's arousing. And that sort of sound goes into our brains, telegraphing a higher level of arousal. So if you're shy about making sound, ask yourself why. Typically, there's a self-consciousness there that means that you're judging yourself, or you don't want to sound weird or look weird. So you're really outside of yourself. You're not in your own body, experiencing your own pleasure, and really allowing yourself with full abandon to experience the pleasure that you're experiencing. And with that, it means that you're withholding your sexuality, not just from your partner, but from yourself. So ask yourself about what sounds mean to you, and how you telegraph that during sex. And I would challenge you also, or invite you to experiment with that if you do have some challenges with that particular aspect. Another aspect of sense has to do with taste and smell. Whether you're kissing your partner or licking their skin or enjoying sensual foods together, the mouth is an integral part of foreplay. Our mouths are very sensual. Our lips are made of erectile tissue, just like nipples are, and vulvas and penises. So they're very, very sensitive parts of the body and part of our sexuality. So let yourself taste the saltiness of your lover's skin, the sweetness of the inside of your mouth or the other's mouth. Notice what you're smelling when you're tasting also, because scent is our most primitive, smell is our most primitive scent. It's the first thing that comes online. Even infants can pick out their mother's nipples from a lineup of nipples when they can barely see, because the scent of the body is so strong and so known to us. And when people are dating or they're starting to go out with each other, scent is a very big predictor of whether or not we get together with somebody. So if somebody's scent is repugnant to you, you're not likely going to go out with them again, and you may not even know why. In much the same way that touch is, that certain skin types feel really good to us, and other skin types feel sort of scratchy or not that soft or just weird, and we don't know why. And I would encourage you to not question that too much, but to really just trust whatever your animal instincts are about what smells good to you, what feels good to you, what tastes good to you, because that probably won't change over time. So be aware of, your partner's natural odor. This can be very arousing to people. And I'm not talking about, body odors after you've been sweating from a long, hot day, although that can be super arousing as well. But I'm talking about just a natural body odor that you have on any given day. We're so conditioned in our culture to cover these odors up with scents and colognes, which can also be incredibly off-putting, especially if they're terribly strong. So you should pick out scents together. Go together and look at, body oils, perfumes, smell them together to see if it resonates for both of you, because there's nothing worse than getting close to somebody and wanting to make out with them and feeling like you're going to get a headache because the cologne they have on is too strong, or the cologne is masking a body odor that's not pleasant to you. So these are, again, some of those close-in body issues that people often feel shy or embarrassed or self-conscious to talk about, but that later can be the thing that has your sex life falling apart because you just don't want to get that close to that person. So be bold, talk about what turns you on, talk about what's arousing to you, and notice the smell of the heat between the two of you when you are in the thick of being sexual, and how that feels. And finally, touch is probably the major element of erotica, because our skin is our biggest organ in the body. We have an unbelievable number of nerve endings in our skin. And so the touch of our lover's skin, the feel of our hand up against their hand, the sensations of our bodies touching, caressing, even when we brush up against our lover, we can have that sort of electrical charge that gives us a clear message of chemistry, for lack of a better word, and that we're wanted and that we want to want. So use touch as a way to really explore the erogenous zones in your body. You can start sometimes with just taking turns massaging one another's hands or feet, or a back massage, to notice, what does the texture of your partner's skin feel like? And where exactly do you like to be touched? There's a book that was written many years ago called Your Erogenous Zones. And find out where those zones are. It's not just your penis or your clitoris, it turns out. There are a whole bunch of other places on the body that can be highly arousing because the skin is so sensitive there, whether it's the fold of the arm or the interior of a thigh or behind your ear. Find out where those places are on your own body, or ask your partner to experiment with them so that you can figure out what's true for you in relation to that particular lover. So does anybody have any questions about this? Because I've pretty much gone through all 5 of the senses here. Any thoughts, questions, concerns about what I'm saying? Any examples of foreplay that you'd like to share? If so, feel free to type them in. Somebody writes, any truth to the idea that by having sex in secret when younger, or having to be quiet when masturbating at home as a teenager, trains us to be quiet during sex later in life? And I would say yes. And that can even become an erotic template, where the idea of being so careful, so quiet, because there's a dangerous aspect to that, can get interwoven into somebody's arousal template. And like with any arousal template, you want to be multifaceted. There may be 1 or 2 things that really turn you on, but you should also be willing to try things that maybe you don't think about are arousing to you or not arousing to you, but you're willing to give them a try because it starts to expand your sexual repertoire. So look at where you might be in a rut with something. It's sort of like doing the same workout every single time you go to the gym. At some point, your muscles get acclimated to that, and it's not that interesting, and you don't get that sore. But when you change up your workout the next week, even though you might not like those exercises or they're harder, you're going to have a different experience of your body. And I would say trying different things where foreplay is concerned is very similar to expanding somebody's sexual repertoire. So what aspects of foreplay do you like the most, and which do you like the least? Because that aligns with the question I just asked. Is there are things people say they don't like or they won't do, and I think it's really important to challenge yourself and question, well, why don't I like that? Why is that so hard for me to stay present with the sensations in my body and with my partner? And what are the things that I just love, that I'm crazy about? And what are the things I'm not even trying or missing? Those should be on your questions for your sexuality. And Andrew asks, what is the best way to imitate foreplay when your partner doesn't seem interested in wanting sex? I'm not sure about that question. Or the best way to imitate foreplay. I don't think you can imitate it. I think you're either doing it or you're not doing it. I mean, imitation implies that we're sort of going through the motions of something. If I'm imitating touching you, I'm not really touching your hand. I'm sort of imitating touching your hand. So I don't know exactly how that would work. So if you can maybe be a little bit more clear. Did you mean to say initiate? What's the best way to initiate foreplay when your partner doesn't seem interested in sex? Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you. Sorry I didn't extrapolate that. I think you have to have a conversation first. You can't possibly start to touch someone. And I think a lot of people, and I'll say probably this is weighted on females think that just because their male partner wants to, touch them, cuddle with them, touch certain body parts, that automatically means they're signing up for intercourse. And that's not actually the case. And unless you have a conversation about that, there's no way for you to know that if your partner hasn't been explicit with you about that. So Andrew, I would suggest that you sit down with your partner and you say, look, my feeling is that you're not interested in sex. Is that true? And if your partner says yes, then you have to ask yourself, what the purpose of this relationship is. And if you have an agreement that you're in a sexless relationship, then I don't know how you have foreplay, because foreplay is a sexual activity because you are touching body parts. But let's say for some reason your partner is sometimes not available for sex, but you do want to engage in some sort of touch or foreplay. I think that's when you say to your partner, so is it okay with you if we have foreplay, if we touch each other, even though I'm in agreement and I want to respect your desire to not have any kind of penetrative sex? And if your partner says yes, then you need to talk about, well, let me tell you what I like seeing about you. Let me tell you what I want to hear. Let me tell you the sense that I like, what it feels like to touch you, that I would like to incorporate, a sex toy or sensual foods or some cool music where we dance together. Whatever is really arousing to you, you need to make explicit what your needs are. And if your partner repeatedly says no, then you need to really question why you're in that relationship and what you are settling for, because that's going to leave you feeling resentful and always trying to scheme a way to be sexual with that person, even though they're giving you a very loud and clear message that they're not interested in it. So I think you need to have a deeper conversation with your partner, sort of the beginning and the end of what my statement just was. So if you were to, so someone writes, sorry, what if I don't know what arouses me? Then I would say that you need to find out what arouses you. There are lots of books on, personal sexuality. And I think, for women, there's a book called What's Up Down There. There's a book called The Guide to Getting It On for both genders. If you're gay, The Joy of Gay Sex is an oldie but goodie. But you need to find out what arouses you by the way that you touch yourself, how you masturbate yourself, maybe by reading books or looking at pornography that's agreeable for you. And I just want to be clear that there are a million kinds of pornography out there, from the sublime to the ridiculous and everything in between. There's pornography made by women for women. There's more intensely, misogynistic pornography. There's a whole range of it. So I'm not advocating it one way or the other. I'm saying that you need to find out what's true for you. There's a lot of erotic material also that are stories about sexual suggestion that can be highly arousing to people. But this would be like saying that you were going to go on a trip to a foreign land that you've never been to before. Let's say if you've never been to Italy before, you're probably going to buy a bunch of books about Italy, and you're going to learn the terrain of the country and what the different regions are, and the types of food and wine and climate. And so likewise, you need to investigate the landscape of your body so that you know what arouses you, so you can communicate that to a partner. That shouldn't be the sole responsibility of your partner. You need to be able to tell them how your body works, because they don't know that when they meet you. They can just sort of fumble around and try, but ultimately you have to be the person who informs your partner about what you like and what you don't like. So if you were to design the perfect foreplay, the perfect prelude to intercourse, what would it look like? What would it smell like? What would it feel like and taste like? So would you be burning incense? Would you have just taken a long, hot bubble bath and anointed yourself with oils? Would it be dim lighting, or would it be the beautiful light of day outdoors under a palm tree? what would it feel like to you? Would it be warm and sensual, or would it be in the wintertime by a blazing fire? How long would it take? Would it be, a 5-minute interlude, which is not really foreplay? Or would it take 15, 20 minutes, an hour? What sort of scenario would you set? And what are the elements that would include? I've often talked to people that sometimes, live in apartments or don't have very large spaces, to change the way that your room looks like as you prepare for sex. So that may be as simple as, throwing a beautiful piece of fabric over a TV screen, so that it's not, just so much utility facing you. Bringing pillows into your space. Changing your sheets or the colors of things around you, or bringing a colored candle into the space. But finding ways to turn your, everyday bedroom into a place of sensuality and a platform for sexuality that feels more intentional or spiritual, if you will, or a way to kind of bring the divine into the sex act, if that's arousing to you. And if you were to design the ideal foreplay scenario with your lover, how can you commit to playing it out? And how much fun would it be for you both to bring surprise elements to that space? So if you decided that you were going to get together this week, say on a Thursday night, and you said, let's each bring an element of the 5 senses with us to Thursday night, and set the stage for the foreplay scenario, and we both get to bring whatever we want, there would be a variety of surprises that come with that. Maybe feathers would show up, or maybe satin wrist ties. As I said, maybe there would be some incense, or some interesting new wine or fruit or flowers, or any number of sensual elements, sex toys and sex oils. So use your imagination. Use the foreplay as the play part of sex. Think about coloring out of the lines or finger painting. There are also body paints that are non-toxic. Just make sure that you're buying products that are non-toxic, that are edible, that aren't going to, make you sick in any way, and have fun with the whole thing. And as always, you may find that it's the most erotic experience you've had, or you might find out that it's just the silliest thing you've ever done. But either way, allow yourself to expand and stretch your notions of sex and sexuality. So are there any other questions here? All right. Well, what are the best ways to reintroduce foreplay into relationships after the discovery of infidelity? And I would say slowly and with a conversation. It depends on how betrayed and scared your partner actually feels. Wendy Maltz, who's written a book called The Sexual Healing Journey, which is specifically for people who have been victimized by sexual abuse in childhood and are beginning to have sex again, are scared because of that betrayal, and they feel out of control with sexual advances. And oftentimes people that have been betrayed by infidelity similarly feel skittish and scared. And so that book is helpful in that, because she has a lot of very rudimentary exercises on how to begin to install trust back into the coupleship. And so the partner who's been betrayed has to be willing to participate in this endeavor. It cannot be a one-way street. It can't be the person who did the betraying that's the one that's constantly initiating sex, or constantly trying to convince or cajole the other person to be sexual again, because the person that was betrayed is going to feel afraid, and they're going to feel non-trusting, and it really imbalances the power. So you have to have, the betrayed person has to be an active participant in this process in order for it to go well. And they have to be able to say, this is as far as I can go, or this is what I want to do. I'm willing to sit knee to knee with you and gaze into your eyes. I'm willing to hold hands with you as I gaze into your eyes. I'm willing to try some exercises where I control what's going on, not you. And I get to determine, whether we go or stop and how far we go also. So again, Andrew, would pose that question to your partner and ask her or him what they're willing to do at this juncture, and, include them in on the process. So it's not just you driving the energy for change in this regard. Then someone writes, if I tell my partner what to do, it takes away some of the arousal sexiness. Part of me just wants them to know. I realize that's unfair since they can't read my mind, but is there a way to suggest foreplay acts without explicitly asking for them? Sure, I would say if you're watching a movie together and there's something sexy in that movie that you find arousing, it's okay to tell your partner, wow, I think that's really hot. Or, I think that article of clothing that person is wearing is incredibly sexy. I wonder what that would look like on you. And also, I think before that, though, you'd have to have a conversation with your partner that, sometimes, like somebody else wrote, I don't always know what's sexy to me or what's arousing to me, but boy, I sure know it when I see it. So can we agree that if we tell each other, if we drop hints, that we will just kind of pick it up and try it with each other? Are we in agreement with that? Because there has to be some way of communicating this, because we're not mind readers, and sometimes we don't always pick up these cues unless they've been told to us explicitly. So if you've had that conversation with a partner, and you see a woman who's got on, a sexy red flowing dress with lingerie underneath that you find particularly arousing, and you point that out to your partner, that may be a cue to her that she gets to go shopping and buy those things. And maybe you have an agreement even that you'll pay for them, depending on your arrangement. So there's a way that you can have fun with it also. Or you can go shopping together, or just remind each other about those things. And that way it's not like you're getting together over lunch and one person's taking out their list and the other person's taking out their list, and then you're exchanging lists. I can understand that where that would feel a little bit too functional and not very fluid. So get creative about the ways that you communicate these things also. All right, so as you go forward into your sensuality and sexuality, remember that foreplay is an essential part of sex. It's probably the most important thing, and it's the thing that gets marginalized and forgotten about, which can make sex start to feel like it's about getting off or boring or just a quickie. So take time to engage your sight. As you go through your day, notice the sensual aspects of the day, especially now that it's summer. If there are beautiful flowers that you see, or scents or sights, engage in a full-bodied sensuality as you walk through your day. What are the things that you like that you can bring forward into your relationship or bring home? To also add to that other question, there are things that you can buy and bring home that are clear indicators that these are things that you find interesting or arousing. And one final question here, how does foreplay work for a recovering sex addict? I would say it works the exact same way it works with anybody else. That you talk about what you like, you talk about what's arousing to you. I recommend that you discuss this with your therapist first, and even take a look at my new workbook, Sexual Reflections, which has you go through in a very detailed manner, getting clear about what you do and don't like sexually, and what aligns with your value systems, and what is true for you, so you don't have to give up in your sexual recovery what is sexually arousing to you. So take time to study your own sexuality, to be honest about it, and to be clear about it with your partner. So as usual, we always appreciate you attending these webinars. You can find Mirror of Intimacy on Amazon.com, and if you would leave us a review or a rating, we always appreciate that as well. I hope you have a wonderful July, and that you remember that July is sort of the peak of the summer, the most sensual time of the summer, when we're cooking outdoors and playing in the sunshine and in the water. So enjoy your sensuality, bring your sensuality and your foreplay to your sex life. And I hope you have a good month, and I look forward to talking to you in August. Thank you.